What happens when Black men don't support each other? When our men opt out of recruiting, mentoring, guiding other brothers into the paths of success based off of our experience? This video breaks down psychological realities, the health realities, substance use, and just the cost of sort of just going our own way in our community. I did a previous video on starting off with the question. Sometimes building knowledge and wisdom in a particular dimension of life start off with curiosity. We teach this in psychology. It's good to be curious. It opens up paths of knowledge and asking the question, why don't we support each other? Got really good feedback. And clearly, this is a topic that is resonating in the hearts and minds of our community of Black men. RandyWineglass.com. I just generated this website a couple of days ago, not only to support my mental health practice, but to also support my Black community of men. That's RandyWyneglass.com. I have a free workbook that can help assist brothers who are struggling with racial trauma. Maybe you have experiences of discrimination, of traumatic racial experiences that have impacted you psychologically and emotionally, spiritually. There's a free 7-day workbook in there. I'm still kind of tweaking up the site that you can reference and use. So it starts as a community of brothers in brotherhood to recognize the conditions that we are in currently, politically, economically. We're being boxed out in many, many different ways to where our voice is becoming minimized as the days go on in this country. And pretty soon here, we won't have much representation in legislation, in government. And this is by design. A lot of people in America, non-Black people specifically, don't really have a lot of experiences with Black men. They might have worked with Black women. A lot of times, many women hold these positions of leadership, or they might be peers. They'll get the jobs. They'll get these jobs a lot of times before the Black men do for whatever reason. So they may have more experience, non-Black people, with a lot of times Black women, but not so much Black men. And we're even in a particular space and time in our history where even the Black women are sort of turning their backs, not all, on the Black men and kind of just losing hope and not really taking into consideration the brothers who are doing the right thing. So you see with this rise of media personalities like Chud the Builder, who has been making headway in the media from essentially going out in public and harassing African Americans, using really racial communication, discrimination, really harmful behaviors currently in the media. And he is a symptom of a larger issue that's going on in America. A lot of these younger, I want to say he's a young man, a lot of these young white identity extremists, even Hispanic identity extremists, Asian identity extremists, different cultures, tend to have this sort of attitude in America that they get a pass. We dominate the numbers. Better believe numbers and the domination and representation in the economy makes a big impact and difference in the younger minds and hearts of their particular tribes, their particular cultures and communities. We live in really tribalistic times. So these younger kids, these younger content creators, they are aware of who dominates and who has the highest representation in law enforcement, in government. When you have the highest representation in law enforcement as a white male, you tend to get a little bit ego cocky, have this sort of belief unconsciously that I can pretty much do what I want to do, say what I want to say. I'm going to get a pass, especially when you see this stuff in the media. And that's why a lot of these media programs have to be careful with the messages that they send out because they just sort of unconsciously perpetuate this idea, especially when you see cases where a lot of men, white men, are getting away with certain crimes, whether it be rape, whether it be abuse, murder, with sort of like a slap on the wrist. You got to think about what message does this send the younger people, especially with Donald Trump. I'm not saying nobody's perfect in this world, but just the things that he's allowed to get away with and some of the critiques that he had against Obama and even the public in some stages of Obama compared to a Donald Trump sort of, record in his jacket. It just kind of sends this message to a younger white male group that, hey, you guys are going to get a pass. We look at you a little bit differently than we look at these other guys based off of the situation. But you guys can get away. It's like you guys can get away. That's how black people would think if the message was communicated to us like that, hey, you guys could do essentially whatever you want to do. And more than likely, you're not going to have to pay the crime to the fullest extent like other cultures. Anybody, not even just black folks, would just, all right, I'm good, essentially. So that's where you get these sort of like Chud the Builders and the Nick Fuenteses and all these different things. These non-black folks are paying attention to the sort of social power and representation that they have. And when black people are divided or black men are not sticking together, it really creates a lot of psychological and health consequences. So there's a lot of research actually that's done on this, which I was even surprised to see. Dr. Sherman James from 1983, 1992, and 1994 defined it as essentially what happens when there's no support or no sense of connection to your other brothers as a black man. You tend to sort of internalize this reality that I got to do it all on my own. And it says here it's defined as this high effort, prolonged coping style of I'll do it alone, even if it kills me. And this is linked directly to high blood pressure and cardiovascular damage in peer reviewed studies. You tend to adopt this cool pose, which also closes the door from the inside. Majors and Bilson's cool pose, The Dilemmas of Black Manhood in America, 1992. This stoic detachment that reads as strength to the world makes intimacy with other black men impossible. So now you're out here on your own. You have to get it out the mud. You have to get it out the ground. Nobody has helped you. Nobody has supported you in your mind, even though you may have had people give you some advice or some support. If you had to do the bulk of the work, the belief is already sort of being formulated. I had to do this. I had to get this. What do I owe you? What do I got to do for you? And it makes you a little bit numb to any sense of connection or, um, you know, relationship to other brothers, even in your successful state. So it says this stoic detachment that reads as strength to the world makes intimacy with other black men impossible. Cultural mistrust. So this is also another peer-reviewed study in American Journal of Community Psychology, 2010. They did a study on 216 barbershop recruited black men. The more rigid the masculinity script, the lower the in-group trust. So there's a script. Our mind is essentially a product of different scripts, narratives that are constantly being replicated and churning in our mind. It's like a little bit of a film reel. And the person tends to look for evidence to support whatever the narrative or the story is mentally. Crabs in a barrel. Miller 2015 formally documented in-group suppression in workplaces. So you start to notice that, people start pulling, brothers start pulling, other brothers down in the workplace, even unconsciously without even recognizing it's about me getting ahead. I don't want, this other dude to get ahead of me. The help-seeking stigma maps onto masculinity scripts. So avoidance of seeking help. I don't want to look weak. I don't want to look less than. So they won't even reach out for counseling. They won't even reach out for support because of these sort of like narratives that they're telling themselves. The do it alone mindset, the loneliness numbers. 1 in 4 black men report social isolation. This is a 2025 ethnicity and disease study. They studied a population of 1,200 brothers. 1 in 4 Black men report social isolation. 35% of Black men 18 through 29 feel lonely always or often. So that's a third of the demographic here. 35% of Black men 18 through 29. And what do you do when you're like feeling lonely and you don't feel like you have any support? You start looking for drugs. You start making connections with people who may not be the healthiest because you just want a felt sense of some form of community. The ecology of absence, when fathers are absent in the homes, a norm across an entire network. Young men have no secondhand examples. Absence becomes the air. Mass incarceration trains stay to yourself, and it persists post release. 2025 Social Science and Medicine. So we just get engineered to just kind of stay to ourselves. Unhelpful core beliefs that start to develop. Core beliefs are essentially these rigid rules, these sort of all or nothing narratives that we tend to sort of accept as absolute truths based off of just repeated experience. And these are psychological. So these are beliefs and even emotional that are stored in your fight or flight anxiety region of the brain. So whenever you receive a trigger that sort of highlights that belief system, you tend to orient off of this narrative if it goes unchallenged. So, some examples of core beliefs that we tend to develop when we're disconnected from our brothers: showing weakness is dangerous, trust gets you hurt, I can only depend on myself, other Black men will betray me or compete with me, if I open up, I'll lose respect, my problems aren't real compared to what my ancestors face. And this sort of numbness to your brother makes you a lot more easier to want to take their life, makes it a lot more easier to not even value their life to begin with, because I don't have any connection to you. When you're connected to something like your family, like your children, you're not going to put them in harm's way. But when you're disconnected, violence and aggression just increases. This is why you see so much Black on Black crime, because of the lack of support and the popularity of supporting each other. There's no connection or really no incentive for me to look at your life as valuable. And this isn't me making any excuse, just giving you the psychology. There's a reason for everything under heaven. Okay. So just give you the background. The health costs. Black men live 4.4 years less than white men. Loneliness kills as fast as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. This is research done from Holt Lundstad, meta analysis of 148 studies. You have a 50% greater odd of survival with strong relationships. Weathering is real. Black adults at 50 carry the physiological stress load of white adults at 60. A decade of accelerated aging, worse for Black men engaged in high effort coping. So basically, at 50 years old, when you grew up for 3, 4 decades of isolation and loneliness and not feeling connected, at 50 years old, you're essentially functioning neurobiologically and emotionally as a 60-year-old in the white community because of that lack of disconnection. So you're decade in the Black community when that support is not there, according to the research. So you have accelerated aging. Black male suicide is rising. Suicide is rising. So it says here in 2022, up from 14.8.6% in 2021, it's up to 14.8%, 100,000 committed suicide in 2022. Black men die by suicide 4 times the rate of Black women. Suicide is the third leading cause of death for Black men 15 through 24. This is from the CDC. So a lot of brothers are taking their life. You saw this in the media recently. I want to say of a couple of one professional sports player who committed suicide. You guys who are struggling with these really severe symptoms of loneliness and depression, again, randyweinglass.com, RandyWynglass.com. I created a website that has resources and tools and workbooks that are free that you guys can use to kind of help process the racial trauma, because I know it's challenging to even discuss and talk about, but you have to process it. Post traumatic stress disorder goes untreated, 6.3% lifetime prevalence in Black men 18 to 34. So that means they're carrying post traumatic stress disorder symptoms throughout their essentially young adulthood and middle age adulthood, without receiving help and support. 16.6.3% lifetime prevalence among 35 to 49 with PTSD. Two and three have severe work interference. Four and five have severe social relationships interference. Most never see a clinician. Misdiagnosis is the rule. Black men are overdiagnosed with schizophrenia and underdiagnosed with depression and anxiety. So a lot of times you'll see them get diagnosed with schizophrenia, which is essentially a psychotic disorder where they may have like paranoias and fears. But a lot of black men, 18 through 34, 35 to 49, are living with untreated post-traumatic stress disorder, and it interferes with your work, it interferes with your social relationships. And a lot of times when women, it interferes with you building families. I have people that I'm working with who want families, who want love. They got all the resources, they got houses, they got finances, they got every physical need, but they don't have that confidence in the dating world. And it's so hard for black brothers to even trust women or even trust that you're going to be loved when you haven't received that love at home in your own home. So that does spill over into your intimate relationships. If you grew up in an environment where you're constantly battling brothers for your respect and you're on your own, what can a woman really do for you? You're already carrying injury and you're hurting. And then you're going to tell me you're going to activate some type of vulnerability and love. It's not happening. And that hurts. That sucks when you're like third. I'm about to be 40. This is my third marriage. Okay. And I was suffering. It was so hard to believe even in love in the dating world because we don't show ourselves that love in our community as men, as brothers. And we might think, oh, that's not connected. No, it is connected. Any template and foundation of love and respect and honor that you give for your brother, that shit translates, it replicates. You're like, man, I feel good. I'm good. I feel confident. I am of value. And not that your value should be solely dependent on that, but it's a factor. And when that's not there, it to build a family. So, substance use and crime, drug overdose deaths among Black Americans rose 44% from 2019 to 2020. This is the steepest jump of any racial group. So, you're starting to rely on substances. You're starting to rely on getting high, getting drunk. I'll be clean 2 years in November. I just got clean. Even when I was leaving therapy work, I'm fucking smoking weed because even though I'm a therapist, I get off work, I still got to go out in the world and be black. So I still got to, especially if I'm in an environment where there's not a lot of black people, people are giving you odd looks, odd stares. Black men, we pay attention to body language. I don't think there's enough research done on that. We pay attention to the looks, the stares, the discomfort, different because our life is on the line. We have to pay attention to everything. So you just get overwhelmed. Let me get high. Let me smoke. Let me anything but this. Black men 65 and older died of overdose. 52%, over 100,000, nearly 7 times the rate of white men the same age. A lot of our elders, the people who are supposed to be the wisdom and the knowledge from all their experience. When I talk to an elder who has real life experiences of racism, see, we're like in a digital age. We deal with it, but not like a lot of the older generation. They were there. They were fighting. They were marching. They were on the ground. So that sometimes when I listen to their stories, it just feels so validating. Not that I'm happy to see that how effed up shit was, but it's just like, man, you get it. You were there. It's just I can't describe the sense of freedom and how your spirit and your soul just feels. It's like a light goes off when you get around an elder who lived it. It's like, oh man, you understand. And a lot of them are dying 65 and up to drug overdose. The 8.3% of Black overdose victims had any prior treatment, the lowest of any group. Disparities are biggest in counties with the most income inequality and fewest providers. Broken social bonds are the primary driver of recidivism for Black men. Social support is the most documented protective factor, and the one the system fails to mobilize. This is from Richie and Berry, 2011. The mentorship evidence. What changes when we show up? A mentor cuts violent crime arrest in half. University of Chicago Crime Labs, RCT, a man Violent crime arrests down 45 to 50%. Just having a brother support you and to mentor you and take you in. Total arrests 28 to 35%. High school graduation up 12 to 19%. So they did a 30-year longitudinal study in 2025. Mentored youth earn 15% more between the ages of 20 and 25 and a projected 56,000 more lifetime. 10 percentage points more likely to enroll in college. Mentored youth, 46% less likely to start drug use, almost a third less likely to assault someone. Mentors weren't trained in any of this. They were just told, become their friend. Mentor.org, 2014, at risk youth with mentors, 76% aspire to college. So those brothers that you're seeing out there that you're counting out, like, man, he's just gonna be a piece of shit. He gang banging. These niggas are violent. If you just stepped in and mentored that brother who you think doesn't have any hope and is just lost, he has a 76% chance of aspiring to going to college, 46% less likely to start drug use, and also 45 to 50% reduction in being arrested. Just mentoring and talking to that brother. So the Black Dollar circulates only 6 hours, attributed to the Black Star Project, formerly debunked by Black Myths podcast. Economist Stephen Rogers estimated raising Black spending at Black-owned businesses from 3% to 10% could create 1 million new jobs. 2.5% of U.S. businesses are Black-owned, despite Black Americans being 14% of the population. This is a 2021 study from Census Annual Business Survey. The lending wall, 13% of Black owned businesses get full financing versus 35% white owned. 26% denied entirely versus 9%. Federal Reserve 2024. 47% of Black owned businesses are credit discouraged, needed capital but didn't apply because they expected rejection. So if you grew up in the spirit of rejection in your community with your brothers, you're thinking you're going to get rejected left and right. Median Black family wealth, 44,900. So just want to get some research out there, the consequences economically, socially, physically, emotionally of what happens when we don't unite and we don't help and support our Black brothers. I hope this reaches who is meant to reach.